It is Tuesday on Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand, Patrick Reusse here with me. I'm sure I've messed that up once or twice over the last few years on a holiday weekend and called it a Monday, but it is in fact Tuesday, Patrick, and that means it is time for game four. Is this the last day of the Timberwolves season?
I would say there's about an 80% chance, yes. I mean, they can try to convince themselves to go out and get them a good effort, but what's the point? You're not going to win the thing. Nobody's ever won it. Last year now, somebody got it to seventh game, right? Who was it? Somebody in the East got it to the
Yes,
seventh
that's right. I
game.
can't remember who it was,
Yeah,
but you're right. That
yeah,
happened
and
recently.
won three in a row. But yeah, I mean, it's just they got shot makers. This team all year long. My complaint was they didn't have the great shooters. They were, Cat when he
Correct.
was hot, that was fine, and Edwards when he was, he was having one of his good nights, he was fine. But if you thought Jaden McDaniels sitting down in the corner making six threes was going to win this series, you're an idiot. Because that was, they're letting him shoot from down there, and the Timberwolves got suckered into throwing up 49 threes in the first game of the series and they've been discombobulated ever since. But people are upset about, they got to play better defense on Luka. Okay, how about a 27-footer as you're falling out of bounds to clinch the game,
Right.
basically, the other day? I mean, who you got on our club that's going to make that shot? So he's just a great shot maker. He's as unique almost as Jokic is, isn't
Oh
he? I
yeah.
mean, he's like a 6'6" fat guy who kind of moves around the court, and he's the real slow mo. And but he's got the great head fakes and the hesitation and the step backs and everything else, and then Kyrie in game two kind of didn't kind of had it neutral most of the day, and then kicked her in and had a good fourth quarter, and
Yes.
then in game three it was great the
Yeah.
whole game. So I mean, they got the two best players, but that's usually enough. And then they did get a Timberwolves did get a break when Lively got hurt because he's been killing them too. As
Yes.
when he comes in for the other guy, Gafford, and it looks like he's not going to play tonight.
Yeah,
But
he's out for this game.
I, I don't know. Unless the Mavericks, are yawning. I just think that they've been better in every area, including coaching.
Yes.
I think my guy John Sweeney, has had a wonderful defensive plan. The wonderful defensive plan being, we're not going to let Ant beat us. We're
Yeah.
going to double every time he tries to go someplace towards the basket. They're going to double him, and and it can't be easy to come up with a defensive plan when your best player doesn't play defense. Doncic,
He's played a little
but
bit
they
this series, but yeah,
yeah,
has
he'll waddle over.
reputationally,
He'll
yes.
waddle over once in a while and put up an arm, but half the time they have him sitting down in the post, standing there so he can breathe and get his air back. And I don't know. It's been a lesson in humility here, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
the bad one was game two.
Game
You
two.
you
Yeah.
played good and you let it go away. You let it
Yeah.
get away. And I thought they actually played good in game three, except for the
Right.
last 3 minutes, which have the stats of the last 4 minutes of all three games have just been
Oh
dreadful.
yeah.
They just can't finish, and then the difference is Dallas has got the finishers, and we thought we did, but we don't. Not in this series, anyway.
Not yet. Yeah. I mean, that was the thing. Like the Nuggets series when they went down 3-2, I was like, okay, not ready yet. They're just, good team, really good season, maybe in a year or two with some growth. And they won that series. They came back, win game six, and obviously, rally and win game seven. And you're like, okay, well, maybe they can be that team that kind of skips a lesson or two along the way because Ant is just that good or just that kind of ready for the moment. This series feels like it's exposed more of, yeah, that inexperience, what they're missing in the moment. And And they're just not shooting well. And I don't know if that's nerves or if it's a cold streak, but man, you cannot have Cat go 15 for 54 in the
No,
series, which he
and
is right now, 3 for
what was
22
he?
from three.
Oh, 0 for 7 on threes, and the threes he was taking were better shots than the threes Doncic was taking.
Yes.
Doncic was more contested than he was. Every three that Cat took was a good three. I mean, he was open.
He's
Wasn't like he was getting hounded, and he then obviously the pressure got to him because as the
yeah.
night progressed, he got worse. And I don't know. I have a hard time buying the young thing. I know it's the group, but you got Conley, you got Gobert, you got Towns, you got Ants, a 22-year-old protege. McDaniels is going to be the same McDaniels 3 years from now that he is now. He's going to be
Yeah.
offensively challenged and a fantastic defender. And you know, I heard Siakam in the post game after Indianapolis let another one get away
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
them, and I feel sorry for them because they lost their best player.
Right.
Probably be 2-2 now if it wasn't for them. But Siakam was saying, you go through it, and he did in Toronto, right, and won the
Yep.
title. But he
Yep.
says you go through it, and then you're saying, hey, we're going to get a lot more chances at this. And, now he has to go to Indiana to get a chance to play in the third round. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's no sense. As jammed up as the West was this year, and some of the young clubs that are, you got Oklahoma City, they for damn sure are going to get better. They can sit down there and say, "Boy, we're a young team, and we're
Yes.
gonna when we go
Correct.
through this next year, it's going to be something." I don't know. I think you're. I don't. Do you want to pay $109 million tax to bring this team back?
That's a great question. I mean,
I
I feel
don't.
like they don't have to answer that yet because they're not done yet.
Oh,
And you're right. There was a team last year. It was actually the Celtics last year. They were down 3-0 to the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals.
oh, that's right.
Came back
Yeah,
and won the next three, but then lost game seven at home. That was the weirdest
yeah,
kind of thing they had.
And the Celtics were probably a better team than the Heat.
Oh, the Heat were
It's
the
just
eight
somehow.
seed. Yeah, the Heat were the
I
eight
know
seed.
somehow they got behind them 3-0, but yeah, this is not the case. I mean, we're not the Timberwolves are not a better team than Dallas. So
No,
I'm sorry.
and Dallas is going to be motivated tonight to finish this off because they want 10 days of rest and they want to get healthy and things like that. The only thing I'm thinking is like if you're going to see this through any kind of optimistic lens, I put this on Twitter last night. It's like if they can summon something tonight and win this game, which I think is possible, right? Like, it's not impossible. They've almost won all of these games, even if you look at it and say, we know why they lost. Dallas just has better closers. They've had the best two players in this series, but Dallas is not like far and away the better team right now. I think even the odds in this game I think are pretty close to a coin flip, even if I wouldn't necessarily call this a coin flip game. But if they win this game, we have seen this team be a momentum based team this year, not a streaky team necessarily, because I think they've done a pretty good job of kind of like stemming the tide of the bad runs and stuff like that. And they haven't necessarily got too hot or too cold, but they are a momentum team, I think they showed in the playoffs already this year with the sweep of Phoenix and then winning two against Denver, then losing those three, but then getting the momentum back. So if they win tonight, I could see them making it a series. I don't know if I can see them winning four in a row against this team, but I could see them winning two in a row. I could see them getting it to a game six at least if they could win tonight. And if
Well,
they and if they can get it to a six, anything is possible, I guess.
they came back to from a previous 3-game losing streak in the playoffs, which doesn't happen very often. That's for
Yes.
sure. They did that to Denver, but
Right.
I don't know. Here's the other thing. Dallas. You look at the standings; they're a 5 seed, but since they made their trades,
Right.
they had
Yes.
the best record in the West, right?
Yes.
So
And one of the best
yeah,
defenses too. Their defense is underrated
yes,
right now with those bigs.
yeah, it
Although
is. Yeah,
without
because you look
Lively, it's
at
not as good.
yeah, that's right. But they've had a great plan, and they don't have Rudy Gobert out. They don't have their 7-footer out trying to take away a
Oh,
three and game on the line. But
gotta
I
Chip
don't
and I
know.
yeah.
I think I think maybe Finchie's had to deal with pain or something. They have not been. This coaching has not been good in this series. They have not. I love the guy. I think he's great, but and I think he's had a fantastic year. But
Yeah.
Dallas has been with the quiet Jason Kidd and his
Hmm.
assistants,
Yep.
including our guy Sweeney.
Right.
They've outcoached them, and I think that started with game one. Everybody was, hey, they made 12 threes in the first half, and so we're going to just keep firing them up. They shot, I went nuts. They averaged 32 threes and they shot 49 and they
49.
lost.
Yep.
And they lost. And then
And
they
and
were
Finchie said
just,
after the game, I think there was more threes out there to be had.
yeah, yeah. Well, they're gonna let McDaniel shoot as many as he wants, Finchy. Don't worry. He can, that's part of the way you double team Edwards whenever he has the ball is letting some guy like Jaden McDaniel shoot threes from down in the corner. They don't care. I don't let him if it's a night when he's having his best shooting night in the history. That's what's amazing is he had his best shooting night he'll ever have in the NBA, and you
Right.
still got beat. You still got
Right.
beat. So
Right.
it's I don't know. They're just and Kyrie Irving's one of the goofiest guys that ever lived, but he's also. I was talking to a friend of mine who from Duke country. He said he might be the most talented guard they ever had
Oh, he's
down
so good.
there.
Yeah.
And he only played 11 games. He only played 11 games at Duke,
I
but he
know.
is. Yeah, yeah, and I guess I wrote this the other day, but Jason Kidd said it. How great he is in small spaces.
Oh yeah.
He can creep along the
Hmm.
baseline and into between the double team and get the shot up, and he seems to be content down there for some reason. He's down there in non-vaccination country. They don't get mad at him down there.
Right.
So anyway, he's
Yeah.
and it's I don't know. I don't they don't shoot well enough. I don't think. And when Cat shooting like this, they're
Yeah.
not even close to shooting well enough. But it was. I really thought it was a hell of an effort on in game three, and it still. But then they get outscored what 13-2 when it's being
Yeah.
decided, something like that. So
Yeah.
I don't know where that comes from, but Cat,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
I know we all love Cat, but when the pressure was on, he dribbled into double teams, didn't share the ball. He was going to go and try to do it
right.
himself, and we saw the old Cat trying to. I'm not Cat. I mean Ant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ant was dribbling into double teams and doing goofy stuff, and then he throwing the ball away, and he threw the ball away with 12 seconds to go in game two that basically cost him the game, and he has not been good down the stretch.
So the thing that's got to be frustrating, it's been a frustrating series to watch from a Wolves perspective, just because they should have at least won one of these games. So you look at it and you're like, okay, well, what's missing? And I asked, I think you were hitting on this a little while ago, talking about, just not enough shooters, and they're going to let them take all the threes they want. Jaden McDaniels can have all the threes he wants, and he'll make a few, and percentage wise, he's okay, but he's not that threat where you're like, okay, we've got to guard him. And I feel like if they could turn back time, and I was saying this to Chris Hine the other day on one of the shows, I was like, the thing that they are really missing is just that kind of guard, that perimeter player. Nas is great, not a perimeter player. That kind of guard who comes off the bench and can just catch fire and make four or five threes out of nowhere and just can really give your offense a jolt. They don't have a perimeter player who does that. And I think if they could turn back time and go back to the trade deadline instead of getting Monty Morris, who,
Yeah,
love him,
they
was
won't
just
they
just
won't
wasn't
play.
help won't play him, just didn't turn out to be enough of an offensive threat this year. I don't know if he's just not healthy enough or what, but you could make a different move there and have a guy like that. But it's one
I
thing they've been missing all year. They just don't quite have enough offense when they need offense.
I think they wanted Gallinari, but he went someplace else, right? Aren't they? Wasn't that one name you heard
Yeah,
about?
and
He's a shooter, but
yeah.
he didn't. I don't think he did much after he got traded, so he might be over the hill too. So But
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah, Monty Morris turned out to be nothing, and we were depressed about not having a backup to Conley. But as it turned out, McLaughlin was just as good as Monty Morris,
Hmm.
and you also Edwards has got the ball enough, and then Nick and Nah
Hmm.
he's got the ball a
Yeah,
lot in certain situations. He's had a bad series,
he
but
has, yeah.
he's still guarding people. But it's not like in the modern NBA, and you see the way they play now. And as much as Edwards brings the ball up and has the ball, you don't really need the backup point guard. It's not like the end of the world if you don't.
Right.
Now you do when Conley gets hurt,
Yes, right.
and he played an incredible number of games this year
Yeah, for him,
for a
especially
guy
at
at
his
his
age.
age. But
Yep.
yeah, you know what they needed? A sane Malik Beasley,
Yes. Yes.
somebody like that who
Yep.
just comes in and makes eight once in a while. It makes
Right.
eight of them every once in a while, So
Right.
and
Yeah,
no,
they just don't
he
have it.
didn't get he didn't get Milwaukee anywhere, but he's a somebody like that.
Yeah.
And the other thing you see is everybody that played here now. Like Denver had this Holiday came in and threw him in from the corner, and then this Jones the other night he made
Right.
like three right off the bat,
Yep.
and they got everybody's everybody's got those corner three shooters
Yep.
that our boys they don't really have them. And who's played good though is Kyle Anderson has
Yeah,
had a
he's
good
had a good
series
series.
here. For some reason, I guess the matchups fit him, but I don't think it gets him back here next year. But it's he has been a valuable player in this
I agree.
series. And, I mean, everybody's putting it on Cat, and they're pretty well right. I
Yeah.
mean, if he doesn't make shots, what good is he?
Right.
So I don't know. They're just I don't know if exposed is the right word, but they once they blew game one at home with a rotten performance, I think they started doubting
Yeah.
themselves instead of, and you didn't, in Denver, you thought they were doubting themselves too, and then they won by 50. But uh, I think Dallas is a worse matchup for them than Denver, don't you? Because
Turned out to be. Yeah.
they got two great offensive players, and when the fact that Michael Porter did you see, by the way, that Michael Porter tried to take credit for the loss, and Malone said, no, it's not his fault. And Malone was lying. It was his fault. But anyway, he should have said, yeah, you're right about that. We're paying you
It's like
38 million, and that's what you give us? Come on.
you nailed it, MPJ. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
You're right.
right. That's it.
You're right.
But and if Cat wants to come up at the end of this series and say, which is very unlikely, I put all this on me, I'd say,
Yeah.
well, Cat, I kind of agree with you. So anyway, although
Yeah. And that's,
again, they can't guard. They can't guard. There's two guys on the other team they can't guard. So
no.
anyway,
Well, and what I thought too was like going into the series, I was like, okay, yeah, they got Kyrie, they got Luca, but the Wolves have all these good perimeter defenders. It seemed like the Wolves were a bad matchup for Dallas because they had enough guys to throw at them defensively. They had Ant, they got um, they've got, of course, McDaniels. And I was like, okay, those guys are going to wear Dallas out. And as it turns out, it's not true. Dallas has worn those guys out because they're just that good. Luca and
that's
Kyrie are
because
just that
that's because
good.
Lucas saves energy on the other end of the
He
court.
does that. He does that.
Yes,
And
people say he isn't that bad defensively. I think he's that bad defensively,
he
but
he made
clutch time, he'll kind of guard a guy once in a while.
Yeah, and
But
he made two good plays at the end of game two that really helped them
yes,
defensively. He broke up that lob to Gobert, and he stole that pass to nowhere from
Mhm.
Jaden with about 2 minutes left. But yeah, they haven't finished. They haven't played well enough in the first 3.5 quarters to avoid what has become inevitable in the last 4 minutes, which is that they're just not a great closing team. And they really, second half of the year they were better at it. I think they had a good offensive rating, but they were probably playing some crummier teams. But in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game or
well,
fourth quarters, but when they
Chris Hines' piece today was they've been like statistically they've been awful in clutch time. So
yes, over
you
the
know,
course of the year and then definitely
yeah.
in the playoffs. So it's not what they do yet. And until I don't know, I think that gets to your point at the beginning was like how do you like what does this series tell you, or what do these whole playoffs tell you about what you want to do in the off season? And it's a real conundrum, right? It's like, what do you do? You got as far as you've gotten in 20 years. You got, the conference finals for the first time in 20 years, only the second time ever. And you don't just go busting that up and say, hey, now we just don't want to pay it because you got far enough to say you could run it back. But do you believe this team has another level or two if they just run it back? I don't know. It's a good question, especially Cat. Cat's the big one to me, obviously. What do you do there? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think they pretty much achieved their maximum this year. I really do. I
Yeah.
don't. I mean, I think they played really well this season,
Yeah.
and they how many absolute clunkers did they those they went from a year when they lost to every 15 seed they play, every
Yep.
bad team they
Right.
played to not to win in those games. They had a lot of bad first halves, but then they put everybody away the second half. I think they had a great regular season, and I don't see them. I mean, where do you go from here? You're not. So what if you would have been the one? Didn't make any difference if you're the one seed, the two seed, or the three seed. It didn't make any difference. So you end
Yeah.
up with the five seed, and you're getting embarrassed because they're better than you. And somebody down there was smart enough to say, okay, first of all, we're going to put these two superstars together. And then at the trading deadline, we're going to give away any draft choices we have left to try to get two centers. And
Yep.
they're going to the finals. And you can sit there and anybody can sit there and say there's still a chance. And I say you're wrong because history tells you it's never happened. So
No.
in
Well,
other leagues, it has only a few
yeah.
times. I think in the NHL, two or three times. But
Right.
this is a completely different animal, basketball. So
Yeah. It has been.
it's
Well,
been fun, though.
Owen
It's been a
154.
it's been a terrific season, terrific run, and we've been reminded how great the NBA playoffs
Yes.
are. And you can be disappointed, but it's not the referee's fault.
No. I
It's
mean,
not
no.
Stan Van Gundy's fault.
No. It's
We
not
don't like
Draymond Green's
Stan
fault, even
for
if he's an
some
idiot.
reason. Yeah, it's not Draymond Green's fault. It's they're a little better than you are.
Yeah.
That's
And you know
tough
what?
bananas.
And they're healthy enough that all their key guys are playing too. That's another thing. You can't blame it on bad health right now. It's everybody's
No,
playing. Everybody's playing. It's
yes
not
they
like,
are.
oh, last year we had all those guys out. It's not
Uh,
happened this year.
I got a prediction for you though.
Okay.
I got a prediction that we're going to be told that
Oh
Ant
yeah.
was playing banged up
Yep. We
down the
that's
stretch. We're gonna. That's coming.
we
That's
always
coming.
get that in the NHL. I always felt like we got that with the Wild, like, oh, Charlie
Yeah,
Coyle was
yeah,
playing with a
yeah,
separated
yeah,
shoulder, or Charlie so and
yeah,
so
yeah.
is that's why they didn't
Yeah.
do good in the playoffs.
Yep, that's coming. That my
Yeah,
prediction.
that's a
That's
lock.
coming.
That's a
So
lock. I believe
okay,
it. Yep, that is a
yeah,
lock. That's a good call. Well, game four tonight. We'll see. They're still alive until proven otherwise. But
I'll be at the Twins game. So
yeah,
good luck to you, fellas. So anyway,
well, that's a good transition point. The Twins talk about a hot and cold team. Geez, they're back playing better with 5 out of the last 6. They made a mess of it yesterday. But
yeah,
it's
that
not
was an
that's
adventure. And
not how I would have gone about it by giving up 4 and then having the tying run on third for Bobby Witt Jr. and then just go ahead and pitch into him. But it worked. They still
yeah,
got it to the finish line. It was way
yeah.
more dramatic than it needed to be. But yeah, 5 out of the 6 after that 7-game losing streak. I don't know what to make of
It's
these guys.
they have been unbelievable. The first 20 they were 7-13. The
Yep.
next 20 they're 17-3, and then they started the next 20 0-7. But the one thing is the starting rotation, which we were should have been in a panic about for good
Hmm.
reason. Joe Ryan and Bailey Ober have both been really good.
Yeah.
And Chris Paddock has been better than you could have expected. And the kid, they seem to have about as much faith in him as I did a while back. Because the other day they took him out. And they had a guy warming up in the fourth inning for no reason when he was starting, but he ended up going 4 2/3. So he's been good. Whoever would have guessed that their rotation problem would be Pablo, whose
Right.
ERA is now 5.25.
Yeah, I saw
He's
that.
been awful 3 games in a row. and he just looks hittable. His velocity's a little bit down, and
Yeah, not as sharp,
uh,
not as
the
sharp.
quality of his pitches has not been real good. So, but yeah, the hitting has been much more erratic than the pitching.
Correct.
The pitching is the bullpen's been okay. You know, they let a couple of bad ones get away, but the rotation's been better. But they're very inconsistent at the plate. I was glad to see that Eddie Julian had an entire game where he didn't get called out on strikes, which was pretty good. 31 called third strikes through Sunday. That's
Wow, that's like a third of the
unbelievable.
season. That's like, yeah,
That's
he
Doe from
MLB.
the MLB told me that's 12 more.
Oof.
He looked it up. That's 12 more than anybody else in baseball.
12 more than anybody else
12
in
more, yeah,
baseball? Oh my
19 is
gosh.
the leading. Oh, it's got to be. You know,
Wow.
you can only go back about 10 years to see what the
Yeah,
all-time
right,
record
right.
is, but I don't know. It's
That is
unbelievable.
amazing. That is like
Yes, it is 31. Well, I mean, I think he's got 61 strikeouts and 31 of them are called.
that's jeez. That's like I mean that's like yeah, it's like the years where like someone would hit 70 home runs and the next person had like 45. It's just so much more than the next guy. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting here if they get Royce back in a
Yeah,
week or 10 days or so. I mean, Miranda, I give him
he's
credit.
hitting.
He's hitting well. He's hitting with power. You know, they really liked him as a hitter. Then he got up here, put him at first base, and he almost killed himself because he didn't know which direction to run.
Right.
And then he got his head all screwed up. But you know, they pretty much had forgotten about him this spring, and
Right.
now here he is. Now you say, okay, when Royce comes back, what do you do with him? You can't get rid of him. He'll probably be your DH most of the time. But I don't know who goes when Royce comes back. Somebody will probably be hurt by then. But you know, that would be they're going to hang in there. Kansas City's been one of the it has been the surprise team of baseball. They've been really good. They've lost two in a row now, but they had, was it five straight games with 8 runs or more?
Yeah.
Something like that just before. I mean, they've been scoring like crazy, and they got good starting pitching too. And they've kind of upgraded since going 56 and 106
Yeah,
last
I
year.
would say so. But they already have
Yeah,
34 wins, don't they?
yeah, that's right. They were so. I don't know. Twins are schizophrenic, and the schedule did them no favors as far as creating interest either. With the Yankees and the Dodgers both here already, so
Right.
they're not going to get those big gates. But uh, you know, they're I'd say okay, but the pitching's better than we thought, and hitting isn't as good as we thought it might be. But
Yeah,
I'll
I think
tell
that's
you
fair.
what, you look around baseball though, it's becoming the dead ball era. Oh, man,
Oh, didn't I
alive, there's
see?
a lot of low scoring games.
I think
Unbelievable.
I saw the other day that the league OPS was 699. It's like,
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, it's tough. I mean, everybody's spinning and
yep.
pitchers get hurt, and they just bring in new ones and send them off to surgery, and it's
Designer breaking balls, 98 mile an hour fastballs. I wouldn't want to
yeah.
hit these days either. It's just
No,
everybody's
you
just
can't.
throwing. Everybody's got great stuff now.
No, and then every once in a while somebody will be bad, and then they'll somebody will pop up. We had a 14-11 game a couple of days ago. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
14-11. So everybody, that must have been one of those games where nobody had any pitching, so they just
Right.
had guys out there lobbing it in. I don't know, but
Right.
it is really a problem for baseball. And here's the other thing: yeah, a lot of people say about, well, you're gonna have to move the pitcher's mound back 2 feet or something. Well, the way you're injuring pitchers now, you can't really do that.
No.
You already got the union saying the pitch clock is
Right.
one of the reasons for all these injuries. So you're not going to be able to, strikeouts and low run scores are here to stay the way it looks.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Twins have, kind of been right along with that trend this year. The pitching's been better, like you said. The hitting hasn't been as good, but yeah, just the up and down nature of it. You can't get a handle on them, and yeah, maybe that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, it's that's okay. I mean,
Yeah, makes
we
it fun.
do. I mean, obviously, in the last 25 years, our as the internet has become
Oh,
more and more
geez. Yeah.
popular, our panic level has increased. It used to,
Oh,
they
yeah.
lost five in a row, but it's a long season. But now
Right.
and I'm as guilty as anybody. You see
Oh,
him
me
play
too.
rotten for
Oh,
you
yeah.
see him play rotten for 3 days. You say this team stinks, and
Yeah.
then they go 17-3, and you said, well, they might be okay, So
Right.
it has been weird, but anyway, hey, one thing we should mention is the death of the great Bill Walton, one of our.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
saw Rocco. Somebody got Bill Walton to leave Rocco a message on his phone, and Rocco was he was. They found out Rocco was a big fan of his broadcasting and stuff like that. But Barrero had him on regularly and
Yeah.
developed a relationship with him. I never really had anything to do with it. I never was around him. I did get to one game in the '77 NBA Finals when
Okay. Yeah.
the
Blazers.
Blazers and the 76ers. It was in Philadelphia, and I went with Ron Schuler. We drove from Baltimore to Philly
Okay.
to see the game because the Twins had an off day in Philly. And that was the night that Daryl
Oh.
threw the punch at the opponent and hit Doug Collins in the
Oh,
head.
yeah. Yeah.
And that Philadelphia crowd was
Oh,
insane.
sure.
And that Philadelphia team was great. And they beat them the first two in Philly, and then Portland won the next four, and Walton
Yeah.
was the MVP of the finals. And everybody talks about it was against Memphis where he went 21 for 22 in the 1973 Final Four.
Yeah.
By the way, I was looking that up. You couldn't dunk that
No.
70.
You
You
just
couldn't dunk
lay it
then.
in. You had to kind
And
of.
he had four tip-ins that they
Oof.
called dunks and
Oh,
took away
wow.
from him that night.
Oh,
Otherwise, he
wow.
would have been 25 out
Oh,
of
geez.
26.
Wow.
They talk about that game, but the Portland winning that series, and then of course his knees went bad, and he had
Right.
all these injuries, and he was never as he was probably the greatest passing center of all time, but he never really got healthy again. He went back, he went to the Celtics there and was a
Yeah.
backup big man for them and won
Right.
another title with them, I think. And but it's too bad he wasn't healthy. But what a screwball, man!
Oh, yeah. He was a
Big
character.
anti-war guy, though. A lot of people were mad at him. He was at a lot of protests and stuff like that. He was a real activist when he was at UCLA, and I think he kind of remained that way. But
He was a character. Just you.
quite
You
a
just
character.
lived
I
his
mean,
life. He lived his
I
life. I just love that
lo-
about people. You knew exactly who he was. You knew exactly
yeah,
what he was. I just you got to
I loved him
respect.
on his broadcast. Although, if you're watching a Pac-12 game or something at night, you'd listen to it because he's on. But you're saying about half the time, you're saying, "What in God's name is he
Right.
talking about?"
Right.
He just
Right.
get off. But he was really down on UCLA last year. I heard him a couple of games, and the fact that 4,000 people were showing up at Pauley
Hmm.
Pavilion, and how bad the program had gotten. He would thing about him was he just said anything on the air.
Right. Right.
He wasn't a homer, that's for sure.
No.
He was quite the character. But he was one of those guys that kind of like Norm Macdonald. He was dying and he never told anybody,
Right.
because Walton had been fighting this. They said long-term cancer, and some people might have known it.
Sure.
But I talked to Barrero yesterday, and he didn't know it, and he
Huh.
has a relationship with
Right.
him, but he didn't know it was coming. So it's yeah, what a character though, man. He's only 71. I thought he was a little
71.
older than that.
I did
So
too.
yeah.
Yeah. I did
I
too.
mean, they
Yeah.
had you know what though? You're in pretty good shape when your program goes from Kareem to Al Walton as your
Yeah.
center. That's a pretty good
That's a good
situation
plan.
there.
That's a good
That's
plan.
a good
There's
situation.
that's a good
There was
plan.
1 year between them, I think, one maybe two, 1 year or two before.
Yeah.
But let me
Didn't lose him.
let's see
Didn't lose him to
let
the portal. Didn't lose him
let's
to
say one
NIL.
of boy, can I really coach here, Johnny Wooden. I've had two of the four best centers in the history of the game within a 7 year period. But my friend Wicker used to get in great trouble with the UCLA. The UCLA fan base now, a lot of them
Mm,
aren't around anymore, but
right.
they're kind of the rich guys who were
Yep.
UCLA basketball fans. Then they were same as the USC football crowd back then.
Yep.
But Wick used to always refer to him in print as the Wooden slash Gilbert dynasty, because Sam Gilbert was the guy paying off the players, and they just go nuts. They go nuts.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, just to agitate them.
Just
Back
to
when we
agitate.
used to agitate our readers,
We don't do that enough
now
anymore.
we want to love them. Yeah,
We
so
do.
we want them
Yeah.
to love us now. So anyway,
Oh,
and then one
before we,
last thing,
yeah.
our
Oh,
PWHL team.
yes.
Here's the.
Is there
Let's
any more
make
Minnesotan
sure.
thing?
Let's not throw our sticks and gloves and helmets on the ice until we know if it's a goal or not.
Yes, that's
Come
a good
on.
lesson.
Let's wait a minute and let's say, let's have somebody. I guess on the ice they did call it a goal, though, right?
Yes, yes.
On the ice, and then they did somebody ask for the review, or did they
I
just
don't know.
review all those?
I don't know. It looked like to me it looked like Boston had just kind of accepted it. Like the goalie just kind of skated over like, "Yep, that was it." But then it was it was the right call, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it was
they tackled her, so
smashed
they
into her and
tackled
then
the
the
goal.
next player scored the rebound
Okay,
goal.
I know I'm supposed to be PC on all this, but I went on a rant last week about NHL playoff
Yes.
overtime. The PWHL overtimes are worse because there's so few scoring chances.
Well, the
Why
game
don't
was
we get
zero
some?
zero going into
They
overtime.
have to do something about the picking up the goal scoring throughout that league.
Yeah.
All the playoffs, every game, every game can't be 2-1. Come on,
No.
let's go here. What are we going to do?
How do you
And you
do it?
know
I don't
what?
know.
I think they're trying to do this. I was talking to somebody about this. They're trying to let them hit, a
Hmm.
little bit,
Yeah.
a degree of contact. I think that takes away a lot of the scoring chances because one advantage of not making it illegal to check, to is that you can skate with your head now, and
Yeah.
you can watch the puck, and I think that they're over their skis here because they need more goals. They need
Yeah.
you can't have every game be 2-1 or 1-0, and when there's good games, you need more goals.
Yeah.
But hey, we're not out of. Well, I predict we'll be in overtime and maybe 1-1 overtime in Boston on Wednesday, and then we'll see
Yes.
wins. But I think we're better in Boston. Although the only player that I wrote about from the local team, Susanna Tapani, is now playing with the
Got
other team.
traded.
They
Yes.
traded her to Boston. What did they get rid of? I think she's been two spots since there, but she was on the ice when the goal was scored. So
Yeah.
I think our girls' attitude was down a little bit there after having the goal. We were a
Well,
little rattled when they took the goal away.
you throw your sticks in there, you think you won the whole championship, not just the game.
Yeah,
You think you won the whole championship, and then you got to go back out there like,
that's
no, no, no.
definitely that's definitely a downer, I would
That's a little bit
say.
of a momentum change. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
little bit of a
yes.
momentum change, but it was not a great clutch weekend for the Minnesota
Go
teams
get.
with the
Let
Luca.
me let me make one more prediction about women's sports.
Okay.
The Lynx look so good. I think that uh, Coach Reeve is going to get another playoff victory, at least one more to match the one she's had since Maya Moore left. So we got to, I think this team's got the potential to win a couple of playoff post Maya Moore, increase the post Maya Moore playoff win total from one. So
They look pretty
that's
good.
my.
The four and
Oh
one
God,
now,
they
and
do.
the only one
And
they lost, they kind of got hosed in that foul call.
Diamond Miller, they lost her, but McBride goes and gets 31
Right.
or something,
And
right? So she can shoot.
Collier's taken another step forward. She's
Collier's
amazing.
Collier's one of the superstars in the
Yeah.
league, right? So anyway,
Undervalued still. Like she just kind of does it kind of smoothly and quietly, but she's great. She's great. And
it's been a
the offseason moves they
long.
made seem like they're pretty good. Coach GM President Reeve gave Coach Reeve the right kind of players this year. I think
The
she's happy
rookie's
with
not
herself.
playing at all, though. The kid, the number one draft choice,
You know,
has played 2 minutes or something. I guess they're phasing her in slowly or something.
not enough teams in the league. They're fixing that, but there's too many good players. There's too many good players
My
for the
my pal Teresa Resch, who was from Lakefield,
right.
Minnesota, Jackson
Yep.
Central High, had left the Raptors, where she had a very good job. And I texted her and said, "Are you leaving sports?" And she said, "No, I'm going to still be in sports," but she didn't tell me why. Well, now we know she's the president of the
The new Toronto expansion team.
the new Toronto expansion team. 2000, she's in the ownership group in the new Toronto expansion team, 2026, and they're going to try to be Canada's WNBA team. They're going to play a game or two in Montreal and
Oh, that's cool.
maybe even
Oh,
Vancouver.
nice.
So they're anyway, good for her.
Yeah.
She's a small town gal, and her dad keeps me up to date on everything that occurs with her. So
Love
I
it.
did
Yeah,
this
you
on her.
recommended her. She was, I think, early on in the podcast. I had her on as a guest because the Raptors were making a playoff run or about to make a playoff run coming off one of their championships. So I enjoyed talking to her as well.
Yep, yep. All righty.
All righty, sir. Appreciate
Enough.
it. We'll see what happens tonight. You never know.
Wait till next year, baby.
Wait
Wait till
till
next year.
all
Well,
right.
wait till not next year. Next September. Wait till
Wait
September.
for a few months. That's how long the
All
off
right.
season is. Thank you, sir. Bye bye.
See you. Goodbye.